And here we go. Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. My name is host Eric. I am the host of Talking with Famous People, and I am here with Cooks. And today's topic that I decided 5 seconds ago, as I put up the new video to replace one that had bad audio, is intelligence and type, a sticky subject. So, not that long ago, I put up a video called INFJ Intelligence, subject to FJ stereotypes. And although I felt as though the video was abundantly even-handed, stressing how incredibly effective the INFJ can be in utilizing their TI, it ended the video with a sort of assertion that at the end of the day, it's unavoidable that the NTP is going to be quote-unquote smarter because TI is higher in the stack. But that doesn't necessarily mean I would assert that INTP is going to be smarter than ENTP. And so, first of all, any assertion by a given type that they're smarter than some other type produces a great deal of resistance and pushback. But it doesn't produce the same kind of resistance and pushback if you talk about social skills. INFJ is perfectly comfortable with a discussion of their superior social skills and think it's both accurate and appropriate that it be talked about. But if a thinking type wants to argue a corollary on the thinking side, and I wasn't even trying to make an argument particularly, I was being very, very cautious in talking about it, but just saying it's come up in comments a couple of times when people talk about, NFs in particular will say they get frustrated by an NT presumption that they're smarter, and I can understand how that would be very frustrating. I don't think that there should be that shouldn't come out in any argumentation. It's not a reason to prefer anyone's argument over anyone else's argument, to say I'm smarter. I'm just saying that to the extent that being ENTP has advantages, it's in that domain, and to the extent that it has disadvantages, it's going to be in areas where they have more strength, potentially. So, do you have any thoughts on this, Kugvasa?
Um, it gets tricky when you say intelligence because people interpret that differently.
Yeah, maybe I do, but if you can just set them aside for me for a second. Come
Like
on.
for example, my mom, I wouldn't say she's like really smart, but she's really book smart. She reads a lot, and
Okay.
she's a ENTJ,
You think she's an ENTP? Okay.
or she's
Well,
ENTJ.
oh, ENTJ. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Is intelligence, first of all, is a tricky thing to define, right? Because if we want to define intelligence to mean multiple intelligences, such as any kind of, and I understand why there's good reason to want to think of it that way. It's incorrect to say one person is more intelligent than another because it's contextually dependent. It's going to somewhat depend on effectiveness, and it's going to somewhat depend on ease of navigation. So, if you're a SI dom, you're going to find it easy to navigate your own schedule. You're going to find it easy to keep organized, especially if it's your tool function. Probably even more so than if it's your dominant function. You're going to find that stuff comes really easy, and you're going to be effective in it. Now, is it fair to say you have an organizational intelligence, an intelligence about yourself and your schedule and your individualism through time? Of course. So that's why when we're talking about intelligence, it's kind of tricky. If I say smarter, that's also tricky. But there's got to be some sort of word that talks about the intelligence kind of intelligence, right? If there's organizational intelligence, if there's emotional intelligence, if there's what we call something like TI.
That is a good question.
I mean, I would guess it's logical intelligence or something like that. And I think extrovert thinking is a little bit different. Extrovert thinking is mechanical intelligence, introvert thinking is logical intelligence. But they, the thing is, intelligence, it's as a word. If we really want it to mean something, I think we want to aim it towards fluency in that kind of martial arts, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm feeling I'm getting close to a black belt.
And which one? All of them. All 8.
Oh yeah, I'm all types right now.
That's pretty good. It's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, but the problem is there's not enough vowels to make a functional word in the English language out of those letters. So that's the problem I'm suffering right now.
Well, you and I can start the new club because I'm getting there too. We're going to have 8 conscious functions, four pairs of mutually exclusive functions occurring concurrently to create an impossibility vortex around us. It's going to be pretty exciting. You should be there. Oh, you will, except impossibly, you concurrently won't.
Right. Because we have no functional shadow. So I guess there is no light, or we are the light.
I don't know, but I think that's the bottom line is if we're operating with 4 conscious functions, there's a reason why the other 4 are unconscious. And it comes down to which room is lighted. I can see into your living room if I'm standing in the dark and looking that direction. If it's light over here, if it's the middle of the day, I probably can't see into your living room because it's probably darker inside the house, right? And let's say you don't have the lights on inside the house. I'm standing outside. Which one you can see, it depends on what you assume is irrelevant. So if I'm trying to see what's to the west of me, I'm looking west, it's in my mind more or less irrelevant what's behind me, what's to the east of me. But that doesn't mean that cars don't sometimes come from that direction, even though I'm not looking that direction. The same thing is true with our cognitive functions, that it's a street, we're looking down one direction, and but we still participate in the street because cars going the other direction enter our field of consciousness from going the other direction, even though we don't see them coming. So that's my experience with introverted intuition. Is I've learned to at least to start really paying attention to the new objects coming into the field from that particular road that I'm not thinking about. I'm not thinking about that direction of the road at all, but I've learned to pay attention to they come into my field of vision. From NI. From FI, I notice them emerging periodically as me bursting into tears. And for TE, I don't notice that still. I still haven't trained myself to really notice when I'm doing that because I don't really do it that much. And for SE, I was just thinking right when we started this video, oh, maybe that's how I do. That's what SE is. It's somewhere I got to start thinking about that. Because I've been thinking recently, well, what exactly happens the moment between sitting here and not deciding to get up and do something and take action, and then actually taking the action? When did that happen? Like, where or why? Or I don't remember ever making a clear decision or something like that, So I realized as I was doing shit here, getting ready for this, I was saying my piao 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 mia mia because that's an indicator to me that I'm doing something. Do, act. And I guess it allows it to be conscious with a delay, right? Normally, SE people, it's not a command they're giving themselves to act. And normally, I'm not responding to the command to act. I've just sort of associated that as a little indicator that I'm doing stuff. And I need to remember what I'm doing. Okay, first I got a mia, then I have to mia, which keeps me in the doing shit track. It doesn't even matter what it is I'm doing. The words aren't matter. That's why it goes to meow, 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 because I'm just telling myself, proceed, 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 proceed. If I don't keep telling myself to proceed, proceed, then I'll probably get sidetracked and go off onto something else. So, interesting notion anyway. And which brings us back to the issue of intelligence. Are some types smarter than other types? Kukfsa? If so, what does that mean?
I mean, I'd love to say everyone has like their own strengths, and they can be, that's their own form of intelligence, but I don't think intelligence is the right word in that perspective. So yeah, some people do have more intelligence than others, I would say.
Well, there's a second issue then, which is, as a society, I think we have a problem with overvaluing intelligence. So, as one thing I will acknowledge must be surely the case for non-NTP types is they probably find NTP types insufferably smug and right, you know? And I can understand why that would be frustrating. I see with Abraham, I talked to him about things, and he holds positions and stuff that he's very attached by default to the sort of standard assumptions. That if I say something that's kind of a bold claim, he defaults to the standard assumptions right away, reliably. Oh, these are the most reliable thing I have are the standard assumptions. And it's kind of hard to dislodge him, but he does dislodge. I see people's opinions changing as I advocate my various positions. And I've seen his position change on the issue of privilege, primarily because Justin talked to him and expressed it in a way that made sense to him, which he calls intersectionalism, which is the same thing I'm saying, more or less, but it's personalized or something. Hello? Right on, pipe blown. That's okay, I'll manage to entertain myself in the interim. Cool, thanks Dave, see you soon, bye. Sorry for the interruption. What do you think about that, Kuksa?
I see that a lot as well. Like people say, "Oh, you're so smart," and I didn't really have value for what my action or what I said or something. And I don't want to say, "Well, I'm not really that smart." It's just like maybe you didn't see it, but it doesn't work like that's not a good way to approach it.
Well, and that brings us to the problem of specialness. Like, individuals are not supposed to think they're special. Now, I totally 100% agree with that regarding rights and privileges and stuff. Everybody should be 100% equal. But I also think of it as though we act in a way that's contradictory to our stated beliefs and our stated expectations about how we act a lot of the time, which is we tend to afford some sort of status to people that we watch or something. Like, I mean, I've had people come talk to me and be like, I think at this point everyone understands that's silly or something, but I've had people come and be like, oh, it's an honor to talk to you or something, which is ridiculous. I'm just some fucking dude sitting in his garage, right? I'm just some random dude in Temple City. We tend to afford people like special status. And yet, for me, the contradiction comes in, I have to think I'm special as in comparatively a more value in terms of on some one or more different channels, one or more different vectors, one or more different metrics, ways of evaluating it. So it's like I have to either think maybe, well, I am of more value in terms of depth of analysis, perhaps, or maybe I'm of more value in terms of being the prettiest looking post available to watch on YouTube or something. I have to think that I've got some comparative advantage in some area in order to feel as though I ought to invest belief in this. Now, it's possible I could believe in something, doing something that I'm not very good at all. Let's say instead of talking about this stuff, I was giving demonstrations on how to do woodworking and building cabinets and stuff. That would either be a comedy show built around the fact that I am completely incapable of doing any of the things I'm demonstrating, or it would be just a failure. It wouldn't work because I'm not any good at that. So let's say I were really good at woodworking and I were making a bunch of videos about that process. And if I wanted to feel as though this is a really good use of my time, still no audio, what the fuck? I fixed that. On the second video there's no audio? Is there audio on this? What the fuck? There's got to be audio. I see the audio right there. Oh my god. Are you sure you don't have a problem with your audio on your end? 'Cause I see the mic levels. It's recording. You mean you're hearing audio on your end right now? But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the video.
I just watched the video you just posted. I don't hear anything either.
Oh, you don't hear anything either. What the fuck? Alright, fine. I'm just gonna delete it. I don't know. God damn it. Well, I just put the link. I don't know. Thanks, t-shirts. Alright. So, this video is getting audio, no problem. Alright, well, regardless. Any other thoughts on this intelligence issue?
Nope.
Okay, well, I guess I would like to conclude on the thoughts by just saying that when I put something up there saying like we're more intelligent than blah blah blah, or we're smarter than blah blah blah, I want people to understand something. First of all, don't bother coming with your standard attacks, okay? This is what I can expect if I choose to bother to put something up like that because I think it's of interest because it's a point in dispute intellectually to some extent. At least it displays that way. If I put something up like you need to be smart and blah blah blah, don't do this. Don't say, "Oh, Eric, you're displaying your insecurity here." Yada yada yada. Number one, that's not what's happening. Number two, even if it is what's happening, it's not a good argument because it doesn't address anything I said. It just tries to make me feel bad, as though I'm supposed to justify my emotional state as well as the things I'm saying. So it breaks down on that level, right? If you say, well, you're just displaying your insecurities, the proper response to that argument, I guess there's two responses. One is, okay, well, A, let's say I am just displaying my insecurities. So let's set that aside now. This is purposed by me displaying my insecurities. Now let's talk about what I actually said. Are you disputing what I said or not? Because your displaying insecurities is not a response to what I'm actually saying. So it may be the case that your displaying insecurities gets you some offense on the flow. You may successfully get some attack points through. But it doesn't actually address anything that I'm saying. So do you agree with it or not? This is the sort of thing that's going to end up happening when somebody responds to a video in a way that doesn't actually engage the ideas, but just expresses that the video watcher is mad, doesn't like my attitude, or doesn't like something I'm saying because it tends to imply non-egalitarian realities. I am the most egalitarian person you'll ever meet. I'm also a complete individualist, and I respect the fact that certain individuals are dramatically, they stand out a lot, right? The issue, I think, isn't that each individual, we almost every individual can find some aspect of their life in which they excel at a high level. And when you're doing that, if you can somehow narrow that field into something narrow enough that you can directly engage in it and have that be a significant part of your identity, then you ought to be celebrating both your own attainments in that area and the attainments of others in comparable things. We want to try to find spheres of existence in which we can live the lives we want to live. And for some people, it's going to mean more attainment than others. For some people, it's going to be more material attainment, not so much me. For others, it's going to be more metaphysical attainment. That's definitely what I'm into, and that involves expanding, making my identity real and expansive, because I don't feel as though my experiences are real until I communicate them in public, basically. At least to make sure I can remember them. So the point of that is I would love to see us move away from a world in which we pressure others to make narrow and limited claims regarding their own achievement, potential, nature, whatever. We are so obsessed with not sounding arrogant. Nobody better sound arrogant ever. You better not presume to sound like you know better than anybody about anything. Except to the extent that you have a specific narrow field of identity, and especially if that field of identity has comparative or competitive elements, you only have two choices. You either establish yourself as special, worthy of attention, or not. If I'm putting up a bunch of YouTube videos, I'm either making the claim that these are worthy to watch, or I'm making the claim that they are not worthy to watch. And for a while at the beginning, I was actively making that latter claim. I was making videos that were not supposed to be attending to people's viewing habits. Now I'm making the opposite claim. I'm saying, I think it's worth taking your time to watch me. I hope it is. I try to be insightful. I try to improve on a consistent basis. I try to move more quickly, not repeat myself, and execute out a lot of potentially interesting, useful, and hopefully newish ideas that you haven't heard before or haven't heard in that way. If I can do that, then I feel as though I've achieved something of value. When individuals in the outside world tell me, I like that you did that for me, that you made this video, it makes me happy. It makes me feel like I'm useful. It makes me feel like I'm real and I exist. That my own reality is reflected in the ability in other people's finding me useful primarily and appreciating that fact to some extent or another in one way. Showing that appreciation simply by anonymously watching a video is spectacular. I don't feel any need to control knowing what impacts these things have in the world. I feel content enough knowing that I've got lots of little seeds strewn, and they're bound to do something. Most of them at some point eventually do some little teeny thing, and hopefully it'll all add up. That is the curse, but also the benefit of being an NE Dom followed by TI is in a being like that. So it necessarily is the case that individuals are going to manifest their type. How much they manifest their type and in what manner they manifest their type, and how to evaluate whether they're being a successful version of that type are metrics that we could debate about endlessly. For ENTPs, I think the metric of success is conventional achievement measures for the most part, or total impact on the world. So somebody like Jon Stewart's going to be a highly successful ENTP. He's attained what ENTPs want to attain. He's, famous and influential. Somebody like Joe, who's on disability down the street, is probably less successful ENTP, and is probably quite sad. Why? Because our types determine not only our intelligence and whether or not we're smart or emotionally smart or physically smart or whatever. and they determine our expectations for ourselves. They're how we to know whether we are achieving something like actualization, the ability to feel as though we understand who we are, why we are, how we want to be, and what to do. So, as a consequence, the issue of smartness is a challenging one because it is true that each type has its own intelligence, but it's one that if we're talking about TI kind of intelligence, you've got two types, INTP and ENTP, who've got it conjoined with the extroverted intuition in the first two slots, and they tend to, on that particular kind of parsing, be the strongest two types, as they should be because it's their specialty. The only problem is because we say it's smartness, people all get their panties in a bunch. So that's my thoughts on intelligence and type. I've been host Eric. I've been here with Kurt Griffiths, and now INFP listener has arrived to listen, and we appreciate INFP listener coming to listen. Thank you, INFP listener, and thank you, viewer at home, for watching. Goodbye.